What if the real war in House of the Dragons isn't being fought with dragons, but with children? Because Episode 4 quietly reveals something terrifying. Every major player in this story is trying to shape the next generation. Some want heirs, some want weapons, some want saviors, and some simply want someone who can fix the mistakes they made. But history in Westeros has a cruel habit. Almost always, children end up paying for the ambitions of their parents. And by the end of this episode, it becomes painfully clear that the Dance of the Dragons is entering an even darker phase. Because now, this war isn't just about who sits on the Iron Throne. It's about what kind of world survives after it. Rhaenyra finally has the throne. For years, this was her destiny, her father's dream, the thing she sacrificed almost everything for. And yet, she doesn't look victorious. She looks exhausted, almost lonely. That is one of the smartest things this episode does. It reminds us that winning a war and ruling a kingdom are two completely different things. Sitting on the Iron Throne doesn't magically solve problems. It creates new ones. Every person around Rhaenyra wants something: money, justice, revenge, security, answers. And every decision she makes risks creating even more enemies. This is exactly what Viserys spent his entire reign struggling with. For years, many people viewed him as weak, but this episode quietly shows something important. Keeping peace may actually be harder than fighting a war. Rhaenyra finally begins to understand the burden her father carried. The crown is heavy, much heavier than she imagined. One of the most interesting themes in this episode is isolation. Almost every character feels alone. Rhaenyra sits on the throne, but cannot fully trust everyone around her. Alicent is surrounded by people, yet has lost nearly all influence. Aegon is physically separated from everything he once possessed. Daemon continues carrying burdens that nobody else truly understands. Even the dragons themselves often appear isolated. It's almost as if the entire realm is breaking apart emotionally before it collapses politically. And honestly, that might be exactly what's happening. Because kingdoms rarely fall overnight. They slowly crack from the inside. Trust disappears, families divide, people stop believing in one another, and eventually everything collapses. The Targaryens may still have dragons, but their family is more fractured than ever. Rhaenyra's storyline in this episode is particularly tragic because she finally realizes there may not be any perfect solutions left. Should she use dragons against her enemies? Doing so could make her appear cruel. Should she avoid using them? That could make her appear weak. Should she punish dissenters? Should she show mercy? Every path creates consequences, and this is where House of the Dragons becomes so compelling. The show rarely presents easy moral choices. Instead, it forces characters into impossible situations. That is why so many rulers in Westeros eventually become hardened. Not because they begin as monsters, but because power slowly changes them, again and again. There is also a fascinating parallel between Rhaenyra and Viserys. Viserys spent years trying to hold his family together. He believed love could overcome ambition. He was wrong. Now, Rhaenyra is trying to hold together an entire kingdom, and she may discover the same painful truth. Sometimes people cannot be united. Sometimes old wounds are simply too deep. And sometimes history moves towards tragedy, no matter how much people try to stop it. That idea hangs over every scene in this episode, a sense that events may already be beyond anyone's control. Then we have Alicent, and honestly, she might be one of the saddest characters in the series right now. For years, she fought for her children. She sacrificed friendships, her happiness, even parts of herself. Everything was done in the belief that she was protecting her family. But now, her family is shattered.
Her sons are gone, her influence has disappeared, and she finds herself trapped in a world she helped create. That is the tragedy of Alicent Hightower. She wanted order. Instead, she helped unleash chaos. The return of her old nervous habits says so much without using any dialogue. Small details like that are why this series works, because emotional damage often appears in quiet moments, not huge speeches, not dramatic battles, just a person sitting alone with their thoughts, realizing that everything they fought for may have been meaningless. And then there's Aegon, and his scenes are surprisingly emotional because this isn't the same arrogant prince from earlier seasons. This is a broken man, a king who has lost nearly everything. For perhaps the first time in his life, Aegon is seeing the world from the perspective of ordinary people, people who struggle, people who suffer, people who are powerless. And suffering changes people. Sometimes it makes them kinder, sometimes it makes them more dangerous. The question is, which version of Aegon will emerge from this experience? Because broken people can become unpredictable, and unpredictable rulers are often the most frightening. Another important detail is the repeated focus on legacy. Everyone seems obsessed with the future. Who will inherit power? Who will be remembered? Whose bloodline will survive? This obsession has always defined House Targaryen. They don't simply want to rule, they want eternity, immortality. They want history itself to remember them. But the episode quietly reminds us of something else. Even the greatest empires eventually fall. Old Valyria once seemed eternal. It vanished. Entire civilizations disappeared. The ruins of the past are a warning. No dynasty lasts forever, not even one with dragons. And perhaps that is the greatest of tragedies. The Targaryens continue fighting to preserve a legacy that may already be doomed. They are burning their family apart, trying to save it. By the end of this episode, one thing becomes painfully clear. Nobody is truly winning. Not Rhaenyra, not Alicent, not Aegon, not Daemon. Everyone is losing something. Their families, their innocence, their humanity. And that is why the Dance of the Dragons feels so heartbreaking. Because unlike many fantasy stories, this isn't a tale of heroes defeating villains. It's a story about good intentions, old resentments, impossible choices, and the terrible cost of ambition. And the worst part, the real devastation may still be ahead. Because when kingdoms begin breaking from within, the fires that follow are usually impossible to stop.
But if episode 4 proves anything, it's the dragons are no longer the most dangerous thing in Westeros. Ideas are, beliefs are, and perhaps most dangerous of all, people who believe destiny is on their side. Because once someone becomes convinced that the gods, history, or prophecy have chosen them, there are almost no limits to what they can justify. And that is exactly why the final moments of this episode feel so unsettling. One of the biggest hidden themes here is manipulation. Almost every major character is either being manipulated or trying to manipulate someone else. Rhaenyra is trying to maintain loyalty. Alicent is trapped by the consequences of earlier decisions. Political advisors are constantly shaping narratives, and powerful families continue using younger generations as pieces on a chessboard. This has always been the true Game of Thrones. Not swords, not dragons, people. The ability to influence how others think, because controlling minds is often far more powerful than controlling armies. This becomes especially important when we look at the younger characters. House of the Dragon constantly asks one painful question. Do children inherit destiny, or do adults force destiny upon them? Think about it. Almost every tragedy in this story began because older generations projected their hopes and fears onto their children. Viserys named an heir. Otto pushed Alicent into power. Alicent protected her children. Daemon pushed his family toward greatness. Every decision created another conflict, another resentment,
Another war. The younger generation keeps inheriting problems they never created, and now the cycle is repeating again. That may be the most heartbreaking part of this entire story. Nobody seems capable of breaking the cycle. Another brilliant detail in this episode is the continued focus on fear. Everyone is afraid. Rhaenyra fears losing control. Alicent fears losing her family. Aegon fears becoming irrelevant. Daemon fears what the future may bring. Even ordinary people fear what the dragons might do next. Fear has become the invisible ruler of Westeros, and fear always creates bad decisions. History repeatedly proves this. People do terrible things when they believe they have no other choice. That is exactly how kingdoms fall. Not through one massive mistake, but through hundreds of smaller decisions made out of fear. The imagery involving old ruins is also incredibly important. The destroyed model of Valyria isn't there by accident. It's a warning. Old Valyria was the greatest civilization the world had ever seen. Its dragon lords believed themselves superior, untouchable, almost godlike, and yet it still vanished completely. The doom reminds us that no empire is eternal. The Targaryens often behave as though dragons guarantee their future. History says otherwise. Empires don't collapse because they lack power. They collapse because they destroy themselves. And unfortunately, that seems to be exactly where House Targaryen is heading. The ending of Episode 4 is less about politics and more about transformation. We're watching people change, and not necessarily for the better. Rhaenyra is becoming harder. Alicent is becoming more broken. Aegon is becoming more desperate. Daemon is becoming increasingly willing to do dangerous things for his family. Everyone is slowly evolving. The war is changing them. Because war doesn't only destroy cities, it changes identities. It forces people to become versions of themselves they never expected. That is why the ending feels so heavy. Nobody can go back anymore. Too much blood has been spilled. Too many betrayals have happened. Too many lines have already been crossed, and once that happens, peace becomes almost impossible. Another terrifying realization is that legitimacy is still at the center of everything. Who deserves to rule? Whose claim matters more? Who gets to decide? The tragedy is that nobody has a universally accepted answer. And when societies stop agreeing on legitimacy, civil wars begin. That is exactly what we're seeing. Every faction believes they're defending justice. Every faction believes history will prove them right, and that makes compromise almost impossible, because people rarely negotiate when they think destiny itself supports them. One hidden detail many viewers may overlook is how often dragons mirror their riders. When riders become angry, the dragons become restless. When rulers become uncertain, the dragons appear unpredictable. The relationship almost feels symbolic. Dragons are physical manifestations of Targaryen emotions, their pride, their rage, their ambition, which means as the family continues falling apart, the dragons may become even more dangerous, because chaos among riders often leads to chaos everywhere else. Another interesting detail is the growing contrast between rulers and ordinary people. The small folk are increasingly becoming victims of decisions they had no part in making. Kings and queens debate strategy, lords discuss succession, but ordinary families simply want to survive. This is something House of the Dragon constantly reminds us. Wars are never fought only by rulers. Entire populations suffer because of decisions made in castles, and eventually, that suffering creates resentment, sometimes even rebellion. Fan theories. Theory number 1. Many fans believe that the next phase of the war will become much more personal. Political disagreements are slowly turning into emotional vendettas, and emotional wars are often the bloodiest, because revenge doesn't care about consequences. Theory number 2. Another popular theory is that several characters may begin acting independently rather than following traditional loyalties. The longer this conflict continues, the unpredictable alliances become. In Westeros, today's ally often becomes tomorrow's enemy. Theory number 3. Some viewers believe the repeated references to destiny and prophecy may be hinting toward a larger tragedy. The characters think they're shaping history, but perhaps they're simply walking toward a future that was always inevitable. Of course, this remains speculation, but House of the Dragon loves exploring the tension between fate and free will. Looking ahead, Episode 4 feels like the calm before another storm. The emotional damage is already visible. Trust is disappearing, families are splintering, old friendships are fading, and every character is becoming more desperate. That combination is incredibly dangerous because desperate people often make catastrophic decisions, expect betrayals, expect painful sacrifices, expect characters to make choices that will shock viewers. Because the Dance of the Dragons was never meant to have happy endings. It was always a tragedy, a story about a family destroying itself from within. Perhaps the saddest thing about this episode is realizing that almost everyone believes they're doing the right thing. Rhaenyra believes she is protecting her father's legacy. Alicent believes she protected her children. Aegon believes the throne belongs to him. Daemon believes he is safeguarding his family. Nobody wakes up intending to become a villain. Instead, small choices slowly push people toward darkness. That is what makes House of the Dragon so compelling. Its characters feel human, flawed, emotional, sometimes selfish, sometimes noble, often both at the same time. And as Episode 4 comes to an end, one truth becomes impossible to ignore. The real enemy was never simply another claimant to the throne. It was pride, fear, ambition, and the inability to let go. Because once a family begins fighting itself, even dragons may not be enough to save it. And if this episode is any indication, the most devastating chapters of the Dance of the Dragons are still waiting ahead.